Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for the first annual Stanford Conference on Disability in Medicine and Healthcare. We are incredibly excited to share this interactive webinar with you all. My name is Zainub Dhanani, and I am a medical student at Stanford School of Medicine, a member of Stanford Medical Students with Disability and Chronic Illness, and the founder and co-organizer of today's conference. First, let me speak to Stanford MSDCI. Stanford MSDCI is short for Medical Students with Disability and Chronic Illness, and we are an organization dedicated to raising awareness of chronic illness and disabilities among medical professionals and addressing the stigma and challenges associated with practicing medicine while having a chronic illness or a disability. Medical Students with Disability and Chronic Illness serves as a support group, alongside advocating for students in order to improve the accessibility of medical education. It's also a platform for students to unpack the complexities of learning the etiology and treatments of diseases that they may themselves have or have had experiences with. As a medical student with chronic illness, MSDCI provided me with a valuable community of peers who had experienced similar challenges and prejudices in entering the medical field. However, I also recognize that Stanford is one of very few medical schools to have an organization that's dedicated to students with chronic illness or disability. And though most institutions do now have policies against discrimination of individuals with disability, non-discrimination is really the bare minimum. Rather, our goal is for the larger medical community to recognize and value the unique perspectives and contributions that come from having medical professionals and trainees with disability or chronic illness in the field. That is what inspired me to create the conference we are here for today. As the first of what we hope will become an annual conference, we have centered today around opening conversations on the many ways in which disability intersects with healthcare and with medicine. This includes looking at healthcare professionals with disability, how institutions can be supportive of medical trainees with disability, the healthcare of patients who have disability, and challenges to culturally humble care, as well as what it means to train physicians to be better at treating patients with disability. It is with that in mind that we have brought together an incredible lineup of speakers to host each of today's sessions. And here you can see the schedule for our conference, and we have 5 primary speakers today, the first being Dr. Holly Tabor, who is an Associate Professor of Medicine at Stanford University, as well as the Associate Director for Clinical Ethics and Education for the Stanford Center of Biomedical Ethics. She will be speaking today on the intersection of disability and COVID-19. Dr. Nathaniel Gleason is an Associate Professor of Clinical Medicine at UCSF and Medical Director for Practice Innovation. He will be sharing his insights on the power and benefit of having disabled professionals in healthcare. Dr. Lisa Meeks is an Associate Professor of Family Medicine and Director of Disability Education at University of Michigan School of Medicine. She will be discussing her research on disability in medicine and medical education, alongside Kate Panzer, who is a research assistant and incoming medical student at University of Michigan. Dr. Nicole Taylor is an assistant professor of family medicine and director of disability education at Dr. Nicole Taylor is an associate professor of clinical anesthesiology and assistant dean of student affairs at Wake Forest School of Medicine. She will be speaking from her expertise on mentorship for medical students with disabilities. And last but not least, Dr. Chris Moreland, who is an associate professor of internal medicine and associate residency program director at Dell Medical School at the University of Texas, Austin, will be sharing his remarks on the disability healthcare gap and the challenges to culturally humble care. We also have several moderators for today's breakout sessions. Dr. Alina Engelman is an assistant professor of health sciences at Cal State East Bay and on the Community Health Commission for the City of Berkeley. Purna Kushalnagar is the director for the Center for Deaf Health Equity and a professor at Gallaudet University. Dr. Bonnie Swenner is an associate professor of ophthalmology at Johns Hopkins School of Medicine. Dr. Christy Kirshner is a clinical professor in the University of Illinois College of Medicine Department of Medical Education. And Dr. Satendra Singh is a professor at the University College of Medical Sciences in Delhi. And finally, I have the immense pleasure of introducing you all to my co-organizer for today's conference, Dr. Peter Poullos. Dr. Peter Poullos is a native of Stockton, California. He attended Santa Clara University, then received his MD degree at the University of Texas Medical School at Houston, after which he did internal medicine residency at the University of California, San Francisco, which he finished in 2002. He stayed at UCSF as a gastroenterology fellow, but after spinal cord injury, he decided to retrain in radiology. He did his radiology residency at Stanford University, where he also completed a fellowship in body imaging in 2009. Dr. Poullos is now faculty in both the departments of radiology and gastroenterology and hepatology. Dr. Poullos served as Associate Residency Program Director for Stanford's Radiology Residency from 2009 through 2016. He is the founder and Executive Director of Stanford Medicine Abilities Coalition, which he founded in 2018. He is a faculty advisor to the medical students with disability and chronic illness. Dr. Poullos currently serves on Stanford School of Medicine Faculty Senate and the School of Medicine Diversity Cabinet. He also has a strong interest in medical education and enjoys the opportunity to teach medical students, residents, and fellows. I would like to now turn over the mic to Dr. Poullos, who will also be sharing some opening remarks.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Zainub, for that kind introduction. I'm so excited to have all of you here joining us today. This has been a lot of effort by a lot of people to get to this point. And we are just beyond happy to have so many people registered for the conference, over 1,200 at this point, and from all over the world. So I want to start out just by showing you this word, strength, and ask you what this word means to you. There is a culture of strength in medicine that runs deep. It's especially true in medical school and residency, where we are expected to just work long hours, tolerate whatever suffering is doled out to us, to go without food and drink and sleep, to not ask for anything, to be fast and efficient. We're not given enough time to take care of ourselves. And even worse than that, we're proud of it. And where do people with disabilities fit in this culture of strength? I want to share with you a little bit about my story so you understand who I am. This is me in 2003. I gained a lot of weight during my internship and had to figure out a way to burn it off. So I thought that cycling would be a great way to do that. I began riding my bike to work and then riding more for fun. And then eventually, of course, got really into it and started racing. And so at this time, I was a GI fellow at UCSF. We were taking every other night call. Uh, I was very much like the picture of health, of stamina, of efficiency and strength. And disability was the farthest thing from my mind. And so on January 5th, 2003, when I had a bicycle accident and laid on the ground facing the sky, unable to move my limbs, um, I knew that my life had changed forever. This is me in the ICU at San Francisco General. I was paralyzed almost completely from the neck down. I could move my left big toe, and that was about it. My prognosis was guarded. We didn't know if I was going to get return of any function, or if I would have been a complete or nearly complete quadriplegic for the rest of my life. I went to Santa Clara Valley Medical Center for rehabilitation. This is me in my power wheelchair with my hands strapped down and a chin control for the wheelchair. And I don't know how in the world I'm smiling there, but here I am with my cookie bouquet. And, I just rehabbed. And luckily, the biology of my injury was such that as the swelling in my spinal cord decreased, I had return of function. And this is me more recently on my Segway. I have the ability now to stand and to walk, and I'm lucky enough to be able to work full time and do something that I love to do every day. So let's fast forward now. This is we're talking about last year in 2019. I had just finished my stint as the associate residency program director, and I was starting to get involved in diversity work. And I looked around and I saw that in diversity efforts around campus, disability wasn't represented. There were understandable efforts to improve the underrepresentation of certain groups like women and racial and ethnic minorities, which is extremely important and something that I support wholeheartedly. But, as we try to improve these metrics, disability got lost. And, until 2018, the NIH didn't even include disability in their reports on workplace diversity. So I set out to change that. I wanted to make sure that disability had a seat at the table in every every spot where there was a diversity group or cabinet or committee. And so, you know, and I also want to recognize that within disability, there's a lot of diversity as shown in this picture. There are visible and invisible disabilities, chronic illness, psychological, and SMAC, and MSDCI is open to everybody. This has been a huge education for me. Up until a couple of years ago, I didn't even know what ableism was. And I had definitely felt it, but I didn't know that it had a name. And, an example is somebody telling my significant other that they're an angel for what they do, being with me, and God bless them. And when people talk to your companion rather than you out in public, that's ableism. And when diversity does not include disability, that is also ableism. This is a quote from Kim Nielsen, A Disability History of the United States. When disability is considered to be synonymous with deficiency and dependency, it contrasts sharply with American ideals of independence and autonomy. Thus, disability has served as an effective weapon in contests over power and ideology. For example, at varying times, African Americans, immigrants, gays and lesbians, poor people and women have been defined categorically as defective citizens incapable of full civic participation. There's a lot of intersectionality between ableism, racism, sexism, anti-LGBTQ, and anti-everything else. When I speak to audiences that are less familiar with this material, say at a required faculty meeting, I address people and, maybe in the audience who don't belong to any of these groups and say, well, how does this affect me? And one way to explain it is the intersectionality, but, some people don't belong to any of these groups. So I say, are you still not convinced that you want to support disability, that ableism is a problem? You don't have a disability. And I tell them, it's more like you don't have a disability yet. If you're lucky enough to live a long life, you will eventually develop some sort of disability. But also, there's a lot of instances and conditions where you might have to go out on family or medical leave. Other situations like injuries or temporary illness. There's burnout, there's chronic disease and mental illness, which affects trainees sometimes earlier in their career. And then, of course, as we age, we suffer from loss of dexterity, hearing, and eyesight. And as the Institute of Medicine said, if one considers people who now have disabilities, people who are likely to develop disabilities in the future, and people who are or will be affected by disabilities of family members or others close to them, then disability affects today or will affect tomorrow the lives of most Americans. Clearly, disability is not a minority issue. In fact, the WHO defines disability as a continuum relevant to the lives of all people to different degrees and at different times in their lives, virtually a universal phenomenon and a natural feature of the human condition. There is nothing wrong with people with disabilities, yet we suffer from a lot of misconceptions. We can't do the job. It's not safe. to have a doctor with a disability. It's a burden on the system. It's too time consuming and expensive to make accommodations. What about, you know, compensation? What about liability? People assume that people with disabilities can't do the job when they ignore factors such as academic performance, competence, and potential. And the reality is most accommodations don't cost anything. And disabled people generate much more monetary benefits than costs. If you need evidence that we can do it, that people with disabilities can be doctors and successful ones at that, all you have to do is look around and see that there are a lot of doctors out there working every day from their wheelchair, from their crutches, um, you know, whatever their disability is, and they are succeeding. And that goes not just for physicians, but everyone in health professions, nurses, PTs, OTs. Uh, there are providers out there with disabilities and they are successful. I'm going to end, no, I'm not going to end there. I'm almost done. Diversity initiative. I got involved with the diversity initiative in radiology. This is the history of SMAC. In the School of Medicine Faculty Senate, we started SMAC from that committee. Medical students with disability and chronic illness partnered with us early to educate me, and I learned so much from my students. We got support from the Office of Faculty Development and Diversity. I was given a seat on the diversity cabinet. We pair up with our DAO and OAE, and now we serve as the employee resource group for all of Stanford Medicine, for the School of Medicine, as well as the hospital enterprise. We represent over 50 offices and departments. We're composed of all these groups of people, and we have a very strong coalition. Our mission is to promote disability as diversity, to foster equal treatment and well-being of everyone, to encourage collaboration, to advocate for accessibility, and ultimately to combat health inequities. And I'm going to stop there and going to introduce our first speaker, which is Dr. Holly Tabor.